probably one of the biggest mistakes will be just to replicate what we do today with AI. If I want to grow, let's say, a customer value 2% every year, how can I do it differently? And instead of trying to use AI to conduct the steps of your current processes, rethink the processes using the new technology.
Welcome to CVM Stories, the podcast on customer value management. Together, we explore how companies can be more successful and the customers happier through the use of latest customer value management techniques. Learn key commercial and analytical insights from telecoms, retail, finance, and other industries that drive CVM forward.
Hello, I'm your host, Egidius. Today, our guest is Silvia Gomez Dominguez, a customer experience and customer value management leader working over 2 decades across telecoms, financial services, and consulting industries at companies like Optus, Vodafone, and KPMG. She's also the co-author of the Customer Value Management Body of Knowledge book and the founder of a brand new community called Women in Customer. Today, we are going to talk about something that is going to change CVM forever: agentic and autonomous customer value management. What happens when AI agents start talking to AI agents on behalf of our customers? How do our CVM processes change? And where should we start investing today when so much about tomorrow is still unknown? So let's dive in. So welcome back, Silvia. It's the second time when we are in our podcast. Thank you for taking your time to come and share your insights with us. And before we dive into our today's topic about agentic CVM and all the agentic impacts into customer value management, I would like you to briefly remind our audience about your perspective and your career, how you end up in CVM.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here for the second time. Yeah, it's good to remind the audience about my experience and why I am so interested in CVM and customer value management overall. I have spent approximately 20 years of experience just at the intersection of the customer and the technology, that human side of the customer and that technical side of the tools, the data and AI. And it's been mostly to design customer strategies that fuel growth and retention. I had the pleasure and privilege to work with the big four management consulting firms, spend a lot of time in Telco, with Vodafone, with Optus, and also banking, like Westpac, for example. I am super excited about being here today because AI is one of the hottest topics at the moment. And when we co-author the CVM Body of Knowledge, we didn't have that big explosion of AI and agentic AI in the day-to-day of the workplace. So I think today could be a great opportunity to talk about that. And also just one of the latest achievements that I'm very proud of is I recently launched in International Women's Day, the Women in Customer community, because I believe there is this need across the board to get women and men equally represented in the leadership roles when it comes to bringing customer centricity, customer experience, customer value management to life. So yeah, super excited with this side project of mine that is having a lot of traction in the early days.
I heard that it was a super successful launch. Could you tell, is this community available only in Australia or is it like an international one?
Yeah, it's available internationally. There are different ways of engagement. And yeah, you're not the first one asking me this question because one of the beauties of social media, LinkedIn, and having worked in global brands is that you connect with people across the world. You can join just for, let's say, the newsletter. There are 3 types of initiatives. The one related to Connect, which is mostly newsletter, events, and roundtables. The second bucket is about Win, which is providing like templates, frameworks, or even coaches that help you with your day-to-day at work, or also if you are looking into what's your next role and can help you to prepare for opportunities. And the third pillar is about give back. So the community has a number of leaders across the board, like there are different levels of experience. There are very senior people from the C-suite to very junior people that probably are in their first few years of experience. There are also like recruiters that have joined or coaches that have joined as well. So it really was an unexpected success. I knew from my network that people was interested, but there are members that I didn't know before and I have met through this community. So throughout Connect, Win, and Give Back, we are starting to get some traction. And one of my objectives is to scale up so that it's ongoing, having big momentum by the end of the year.
So we will wish you the biggest success in helping
Thank you.
The community to grow. Now let's dive straight into the hottest topic. So last time when we were talking with you, Silvia, we were talking about a customer love concept, which is like focusing on customer perspective and aligning this perspective with business needs, how we grow it. But now things are changing. Now more and more people or customers will start interacting with us as businesses, not directly, but through their personal agents, through their open clause or whatever tools they will use. And the question is, how does it change everything? Is customer love still kind of a good framework? How do they interact? What is changing? Could you walk us through this?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you're absolutely right. The way that the world operates today is different and much more AI and agentic AI driven than a couple of years ago when we had our first podcast together. I think in that assumption you made, we have somehow like pressed the forward button as well a few years in the sense of making sure that all the risk and regulatory considerations have been taken in place and that there are agents that are risk safe, right, for the businesses as well as for the customers. So if we imagine we are in that situation and only the safe agents are in place, if I think about how, as a consumer, I will use it, and probably this is how other people will use it as well, I think we need to consider like the traditional 3 layers or communication layers from a brand perspective. When we are talking about buying a product, we are talking about the lowest level in the funnel, like just conversion. But before we get there, we need to think about the why of the brand, right? Like, for example, if we think about Apple, why they sell is more important to customers than the specific product. So those customers connect with the brand in the purpose, in the values. For example, if I want to buy a new phone or I want to get a new mortgage, I could use my agent in a way that I do not ask them to buy me the best mortgage or the best phone looking just at objective criteria like price, for example, but I could sub-select or ask questions such as, what are the most sustainable brands that sell phones? Or what are the most risk-safe financial services that can offer me a mortgage? So in that high level of the brand, like when you drive that awareness, the consumer can pre-select some, if you like, minimum criteria before making a choice. And that minimum criteria is, as I said, aligned to the values. It can be aligned to previous purchases, like look at my purchase history, and out of all the banks that I have engaged with or all the telcos that I have engaged with, pre-select today what is the best phone for example. So that awareness level is what the consumer needs to choose whether how important that is. There will be people that are just looking to get the cheapest, or there are people that they want to buy from specific brands that they feel more connected to. So they can do that in that awareness layer. The second layer is about why we are different, right? It's like the preference consideration. And again, in these two levels, I think the consumer can again say, I want sustainable banks, but that are very focused on do not rip off customers, for example, or that give me a number of additional values that help me to pre-select the number of options. And then when we get to the last layer, the conversion, then yes, the agents can play themselves, right? They have all the criteria, like for example, in a phone, how much does it cost for how long is it gonna last? What's the memory that I need? All those objective characteristics play a critical role in the final selection. But if I summarize, the awareness and the preference selection is more a conversation that each customer will have with the agent, and then obviously they learn. So it's not something that you need to be doing every single time, but that helps you to pre-select the options that you want to be presented. And then after that, from the available options, you can rely on your agents, delegate with some controls so that they purchase the phone or the home loan or whatever that is.
So if I interpret correctly of what you say, it's that the brand trust will become even more important, because this will guide major decisions, kind of to become the customer for the first time, etc. Because kind of if the brand trust is low, even if I delegate a decision for my OpenClaw agent to kind of find or limit the options for me, it's like it can definitely recognize that the brand is, let's say, not too much trustworthy, and it's kind of I can fail really early in the funnel, basically.
That's right. You wouldn't get those options even presented to you if you do not meet like the minimum criteria. Like for example, a very good prompt could be, I want to get a home mortgage. I don't want to bank with any bank that has been in the news because of, I don't know, trust issues or integrity issues or risk breaches issues in the last 5 years. So then the options that your agent will present to you will filter out those financial services organizations that had those issues. And as I said, the AI by definition learns every time you use it. So it starts to help you to provide shorter prompts because they somehow, those agents, those personal agents, get embedded what's important to you. You could call it value, you could call it the bare minimum, but restrict your options when they present the purchase option, so they can just buy for you, like even flights, for example.
Let's go one slightly down to the funnel. So, for example, I personally am super easy to upsell. Like the person, when I walk into Apple Store, I never purchase the device I need. I always purchase the device that looks the most amazing one, and then I also purchase some add-on things that I might need or I might not need. Kind of. So all this, experience when I am upsold, it's a very kind of easy process. I walk into the store and it happens. Now, if I ask my agent to choose a phone that I need, it will never purchase the best option because I am not so good at photography, and I will not become a photographer if I take the phone with the best camera and so on. So it doesn't have, let's say, these images that pop up when you are making the decision of what to purchase. How does this process also change in this agentic world?
Yes, I think that's a great question as well. I think that the prompting and the, if you like, conversation that we will have with the agents change as well. I don't think it's gonna be in the same way that we do it today. Like we buy maybe the fanciest font, if that's a way to put it, for whatever reason. Maybe because we believe we will need it in the future, even if we don't even know how to use all the features today. But then the conversation, it won't be about I want the fanciest font at all. It will be more about I use the phone on the weekends to take photos. Show me how to take the best quality photo for this moment. And the phone will look at, through the agent, will look at the light, the location, portrait or distance. So you won't need to be as expert in terms of maximizing the features in the same way that today you can tell your city or even in Google Apps or any platform almost today. You don't go now and schedule a meeting. You ask Siri or your agent, set up time for this meeting with this person, and even they send an email or reminder, you will talk to your agent so that it takes the photos for you. In the same way, when you are looking at buying it, you will ask or talk to them about what's important to you. And although sometimes it's difficult to put in words why you buy the latest device or why you buy all the accessories that come with it, I think there are different segments of people. Some of them will do that. Some of them will go with the cheapest that lasts probably longer because they don't want to spend that much. But all those, let's say, less speakable decisioning or rational that happens in our head, we will be able somehow to have those conversations with the agents in a very easy way. And not only that, but also we will rate the experience of that purchase, right? So, for example, if in a normal situation today, you will go to the store and will get the latest Apple phone as well as all the accessories. And in the future or with the agent, you get not the latest, but one maybe from last year or 2 years ago. And the accessories, you really don't need them. And this case, maybe not the fanciest one, you don't need that, you do that other one. Then when you start using it, even in that moment, maybe you are not as happy. But if you, let's say, okay, I trust the agent, I want to be objective, when you are using it, you probably are not as happy and you will probably replace it even sooner. Okay, or may start calling the contact center because, I don't know, it's not working as you expected. So I genuinely believe that this new technology will enable to address the customer needs and deliver those customer needs in a more efficient way, more focused on objectives, not on the steps or the process. And just because of how it learns, through feedback and iteration, it will become better and better. And it will be very personalized because the feedback, the decisioning criteria will be different to each individual. For some people, they will probably rate them very well if they are saving maybe $500 or euros. And other people will rate them very highly if they get the best photos with the lowest effort. So, yeah, I think it's going to be better. It will take a little bit of time, but I think it will definitely address all the customer needs in a better way than what we do today.
So I would like to put one more touch from the customer perspective, and then I would like to move to the business perspective as well. So many of organizations they spend a lot of energy and sometimes they even differentiate themselves through the help of the customer to experience the products. So, for example, from the telecom perspective, if you sell a new device, you want to help customers to adopt this device fully. So there are like training programs, help out sessions when you just come to the store. They set things up for you. They kind of teach you to do some tips and tricks, which was kind of the way to differentiate and to build the trust with the consumer. Now a lot of this is moving to ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, or whatever tool you use, and here is like there's an intermediary between customer and some agent that helps you out with all these questions. So how does then kind of this moves the business perspective? So if customers take more and more ownership of learning about the products and tools to AI agents, how does it changes the perspective of the organization, how they enable customers to do it better?
Yes. I think there are different models to be successful in doing that. Also, the different big brands in the AI space, like for example, if I think about NVIDIA or Apple, they are integrating a lot of that AI technology in the devices, whether those are the chips or the iPhone devices. So to some extent, you could argue that for those players that are integrating the intelligence in the device, you could argue that that could be part of the training anyways. So those workshops, and I myself attended to a few of them on the year I bought my first MacBook, for example, to get like way many years ago, to understand how it was different to Microsoft, for example. You could design those workshops to help the customers to interact with the AI agent, to customize the AI agent to what they need in the day-to-day. So I think there is still an opportunity to help customers in that process and use that as a difference or a differentiator. Then there are other brands, maybe also in the technology space, that are less about including the AI technology per se in the device, like for example the Microsoft laptop, versus, and instead of doing that, they are investing more in the agent's workflow or the applications on top. But equally, I think you could organize sessions, customer engagement, customer support, to help the consumer to use those applications and agents for the purpose that they need. So how to select and how to decide what's the best model? I think in these days where we have so much technology evolving so fast and with new findings happening every week, I think probably one of the biggest mistakes will be just to replicate what we do today with AI. And I think probably more successful organizations will be those that rethink their processes, and those could be like the core processes of a bank, a telco, retailer, and also not only the core processes, but also the support processes like finance and other things, legal, for example, and then make very conscious decisions about which processes they want to reinvent using AI, and how, in terms of maybe more than how, first, like what is the outcome or the impact that is going to have. Is it going to be about growth? Is it going to be about efficiencies? And then once they are clear on those goals, it's a matter of establishing the plan and the resources, the different operating model to continue to differentiate and growth using AI more as an enabler that is embedded in the new operating model.
So if we would kind of continue this path and let's think, how do these processes change in customer value management area? So in customer value management, we think about programs like acquiring customers, onboarding them, retaining, upselling, cross-selling, etc. And we kind of combine them with user journeys. We combine with marketing communication, which some of this is outbound and then some of it's like inbound in our web or mobile app, etc. And how do you see the agentic processes here? Is it like, do we have outbound campaigns, inbound campaigns, and then agentic campaigns? Or is it like something else, So what should be our thought process about it?
Yes, I think it's a great question, and probably we can align on some definitions for, in particular, the audience, because every person might have a slight different understanding of the AI or agentic or generative AI. So the way I understand the whole thing is AI as the very global term that includes any artificial intelligence model or method. Traditionally, before this big ChatGPT and probably before the 2022-23, I think everyone referred to AI more from a predictive side of things, mostly like those propensity models that will help you to understand what's the best next product or action or offer to send to a customer. Or equally for retention, it will help you to identify the highest risk customer cohorts through segmentation and classification methods, even neuronal networks at the time, but no one talked about them in the way they do today. And then the second very important bucket that in customer value management can be used extensively is the generative AI side of things. In customer value management, it is super helpful to understand from customer verbatims what is happening. Instead of reading all the verbatims and then spending a lot of time trying to make sense of those verbatims, synthesize them, and create trends. With generative AI, you can have all those analyses done like super quick, right, in a few seconds. And then you can look at the trends, so it's much more informative, and it truly helps you to make them more actionable. And then if I go to the I forgot in the generative side of things, the other very important benefit from a customer value management perspective is in the content creation. So it's not just that the LLM can help you with the text. You have great video or visual content creator tools that can help you to produce those campaigns much faster. And then the last one that I think is important to talk about is the agentic side of things. So in the agentic definition, it's not just about predicting, it's not just about giving me some insights or even language that sounds good. It's also about executing actions. So how you execute those actions can be in different stages of the value chain or the process. You could have agents that help you from the data stage. Like, for example, I identify some problems with the data. I want to eliminate the outliers, or I want to make some replacements, or convert a continuum function like age into age not per se as continuum. It could be just years, but let's assume it's a continuous function into different categories. So you can have an agent that does that for you, again, super quick, versus spending a lot of time coding that so that you create the attributes that will help you with the campaign. You can also use an agent to construct the campaign itself. like creating the segments, creating the different logic from the previous predictive analytics and rules that you get from that to help you streamline massively the funnel of building a new campaign with control groups and all of that. And you can also have agents that send the campaigns with specific triggers as well. And so I think that is a good explanation of how to use the different layers of AI from a CVM perspective for outbound. Then if you look at the inbound component, it's probably one of the most famous as well these days in terms of having the frontline service agents or support agents helping customers with agentic tools as well. So in that situation, the activity or the process could vary as well. It could be from a service inquiry, like I want to move from this plan to a cheaper plan, for example, in a phones company, or it could be a sales conversation as well. I want to buy another service for my children, for example. So overall, it's not that you have agentic campaigns and non-agentic campaigns. It's about how to use the different elements of AI for the best purpose across the whole process.
If you are interested in customer value management, check out our Customer Value Management Body of Knowledge. CVM Body is a comprehensive guide for CVM professionals offering tips, tools, and best practices to help you in your job. Visit cvmbok.com for more.
I would like to link this to how a general way of work will change for CVM team. Historically, the CVM team sits in between of everything. Between data, between campaign configuration, pricing, inbound channels, outbound channels like sales teams, etc. And it's kind of you customer value manager would be working as coordinator, of like, please, I need new customer attribute added to the data warehouse, or I need a new predictive model, and the tasks would land to other teams in the organization. Now, how does it change? How does this thing change? Because if I can ask to add the attribute myself in the data warehouse, how does it change my role?
I think with the new ways of working and AI being so central to everything that we do, I think while CVM is critical in terms of that orchestration of the customer interactions and engaging across the board, I think the role of I don't know if it is called the head of AI or the chief of AI, is also super important. And I think CVM will need to team up with this AI chief or VP to make sure that as part of those AI priority use cases or strategic priorities overall, CVM is a central part of it. But how specifically it works, it will depend on the organization and the regulation in the specific country as well. And overall, what is the appetite? There are multiple things that you can consider in terms of appetites or flavors. Some organizations might be more growth focused or risk focused or a combination of both. If I think about those two terms, just for simplicity, I think there could be a situation where the focus is growth. And then in those scenarios, maybe it's more like a decentralized model where the different parts of the business have autonomy and knowledge to use AI in the way they want for the specific purposes of the departments. Like, for example, in an environment where growth is the priority, maybe if I talk about telco, in the home space, the team is maximizing opportunities using AI to win more customers using internet. But in parallel, in the postpay space, the same thing might be happening. I find that this growth mindset with AI, where each of the individual teams are kind of upskilling themselves individually and independently and building somehow like the ecosystem in different spaces, like the home space for this example or the postpay space for this example. I think that can work okay for experimentation and for early days, just to help really understand what works, what doesn't, and where do I invest more time or efforts. I think it has some problems as well, in particular around duplication and not learning from each other. Could be very fast, but maybe not as efficient in the longer run. However, if I go to the other stream, right, like organizations that basically they want consistency, they want minimizing the risk, and they do not want different teams working in isolation, those organizations might choose to implement a very risk and control oriented model, which is probably very, very centralized. Let's say one center of excellence that has to review every single use case that wants to use AI and for what purposes, and then has dedicated people, a small group of people that are dedicated to implementing AI use cases across the business. So that could be for customer value management or for legal or for postpay, anything. So I think that model has benefits, in particular around that consistency, learning from each use case, and creating that intelligence across the organization. At the same time, if you take it to the very extreme, it can be very slow and demotivating as well for people that want to launch their use case because they really see the benefit, but they are like experiencing bottlenecks from other initiatives that got there before them, and they kind of move through the bottleneck. And so I think that probably the most successful model will be in the middle, in between the only growth mindset and only risk mindset, and somehow finding probably a hybrid center of excellence where you have a central hub that defines like the AI ethical principles, that defines the ways of working, the methods, that somehow provides a lot of training across the organization so that then the individual, if you like, squads can operate and implement AI initiatives in a consistent way, sharing knowledge. And then you have a lot of common operational rhythm, like, for example, quarterly planning that helps across the organization to understand which initiatives to focus on based on the growth, the impact, whether they can be reused across different teams. It's not just one particular siloed initiative. So that hybrid model provides guidance, provides guardrails, but also helps to accelerate the delivery across the organization. So I think if we were to operate in that hybrid model, coming back to the beginning of your question, like how is this now working for the CVM team and the head of CVM? So I think the head of CVM will need to be very close to the head of AI and also find a way that the CVM initiatives are prioritized through that center of excellence, hybrid center of excellence, to get the resources, the training, and the impact.
So I have a provocating question for you.
Yeah.
I am one of those, super AI adopters. What we see in our organization is that the biggest impact of AI we can get the biggest impact from adopting AI in the situations when we have, let's say, large, extremely cross-functional projects. Because kind of in large, extremely cross-functional projects, the biggest cost is not doing the work itself. It's usually handovers, alignments, and kind of all the things that fall into between two chairs, and it's like figuring all these things out. I see parallels in CVM, like when we do this CVM trends reports and we interview telecoms. There are kind of everything what sits directly inside the CVM team is really fast. Can I create a new campaign? Yes, you can very fast. But as soon as we are talking about entering new data points, adding new integrations, configuring maybe new price plans or whatever, which is more cross-functional when you start need to align a couple of aspects of organization, these get kind of the timing becomes months, half a year, sometimes years, And in our case, we see situations that when we apply AI across, large cross-functional projects, we can go from like a year of delivery towards maybe weeks, which is like extreme speed up. Do you see this extreme speed up for the CVM processes in this age of AI? So, for example, let's say CVM team gets access to all necessary systems, and then if they need to do integration, they ask their agent to do an integration, then to add the data point, then to configure a new price plan if necessary. Do you see the kind of this potential to speed up drastically some of the aspects of the CVM work?
I think that there are different components to consider when answering this question. I think that if we focus for a moment just in the agentic AI component, we can imagine, and actually this is happening already, organizations that are focusing on specific use cases, like for example, customer support, and they might have started using agentic AI with proofs of concepts or pilots. And then once they have become more confident and customer experience is good, the effectiveness and efficiencies are better than not using it, then they are implemented and part of the day-to-day. So they're having efficiencies in how they operate in that particular use case. However, that is only one use case. As I said, for example, in customer support. Then this organization could have another use case around legal and marketing communications and how to use the agents to review the communications according to the legal considerations and the brand tone of voice and propose changes or even implement those changes within guardrails. That would be another use case. However, what I think is starting to happen the more and more, and I will imagine a world where this is functioning full steam, is like an orchestration layer, like the all interface, if you think about the older IT terms, but an agent that orchestrates and talks to all the agents across the enterprise. Like this orchestrator could be talking to the agent in the data space, the data warehouse, or any kind of structure or unstructured data, and ask questions to get the right data for the activity that they want to conduct end-to-end from the data to the customer. Then they will talk to the CVM agent, for example, right, to understand how that data is being used throughout campaigns, through different customer segments, what's the success of that campaign versus the control group. Then they can talk to the agent in digital, and so on and so forth. So I believe where this agentic side is taking us is towards that conductor of agents, an orchestrator that can operate through the organization end-to-end within the respective guardrails.
Do I understand correctly that in this world where every organization function has an agent or two, maybe three, can we imagine the autonomous CVM world where, I come to the office on Monday morning, take my coffee, and just observe what my CVM agent is about to do, maybe launch a new onboarding campaign test, or maybe proposing to add a new price plan that would help to do the upsell and cross-sell better. Do you see this coming?
Do I see it coming? That's a great question. Do I think is it possible? I think it's possible.
Yes.
I'm not sure it will happen though. Maybe it happens within a specific guardrails because what this technology is known for is for maximizing the objectives. So if you set up an agent to maximize, let's say, growth, it will do whatever it needs to do to get that growth KPI maximized. That might not be the best business or customer outcome because it might be detrimental to other KPIs, right? So I think maybe what happens is there will be much more autonomy. I think it's super important that we embed the risk frameworks in the different countries, in the different industries properly. There are some very basic questions that we should be asking the AI agent or orchestrator, conductor, in terms of what information is AI using, for what purpose, what is the impact if something goes wrong. Do we have the controls in place to identify if something goes wrong before it escalates and becomes even a more problematic issue? Can we stop it anytime if we want to? Like, what's the role of human in the loop? So I think from a doability perspective and a technology perspective, I completely see that being possible. However, I think we haven't yet understood all the implications and all the considerations. So we need to be careful in how we implement it. If there are use cases that have no impact to the customer, to the economy, to the industry, we can be much more flexible and futuristic if we want. If AI is deciding, for example, whether to give a loan to an individual or not, I think we need to have definitely human in the loop, and we need to make sure that from a regulation perspective, we are being with AI non-biased, transparent, and we are not benefiting some specific customer cohorts and being detrimental to others. So there are so many considerations that it's actually a great time to be in business in terms of reinventing the operating model, the risk frameworks, and making sure that those risk frameworks are evolving over time, because AI is non-deterministic.
Customer value managers typically are quite senior roles, and you get you become a member of customer value manager when you send the wrong message for the wrong customer base, or you send a bad message to the whole customer base, because everyone has the story. And once this happened when you send the bad message, or you spam a single customer with 100,000 messages, you grow as a customer value manager, you come from the first level to the second level. After this, yes, when you get this car, something changes. It's like you become way more paranoid about making mistakes, etc., etc. So I'm wondering how these cars will be implemented into the the agentic world, because when you talk about the guardrails, it's like these are the scars that we as professionals have, but it's like we will need to transfer those into this autonomous thinking or autonomous machines that will help us out in the future. From the practical perspective, what would be, let's say, first 3 or 4 areas where you would build the biggest guardrails
Yes.
for AI agents?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And it's also a reflection of how the world overall is changing. Because at the moment you can progress really fast across all the steps in the funnel, like for example, the data, the analytics models, the campaign build, and therefore what's the impact to the customer, versus before maybe you were progressing in a more waterfall way. So you could assess, for example, the risk and issues from a data perspective before you will build the models, before you will build the campaigns, before you will see what's the response from the customer. And so if I think about the risk at the moment, the one first consideration is being conscious that, again, as I said just a moment ago, that AI and agentic AI is non-deterministic. So the traditional models for risk have been based on an assessment that happens in a particular moment in time, for example, when you launch or are about to launch, and then that risk assessment continue to be valid like forever, unless something changes, like an upgrade or a technology, something changes. But in AI, that risk assessment is valid only in the moment where you did the iteration. Then you need to establish those risk mechanisms ongoing, because the response, the result that you are going to get from the agent might be different the next time. So ensuring that we have those risk mechanisms that continue to monitor and reassess and reevaluate the risk from an ongoing perspective is super important. Establishing specific alerts that within the guardrails, right? Like maybe it's all green, but something is starting to become amber. Let's review. Maybe there is more human oversight for those particular situations. Because once you understand what is deviating from an outcome perspective, then you can identify how to fix it, whether it's more data related or model related or so on and so forth. So that's one very important component. The other component is from a regulatory perspective. And again, this might be different across different industries and countries. But from a CVM perspective, there are some common ones. You touched on the Spam Act, or from a over-communicating perspective, and making sure that we respect customers' wishes from, I don't want to get marketing campaigns, and even if they want to get marketing campaigns, so that they have a very easy option out to opt out. So making sure that those links processes are always in place, whether that is via agentic campaigns or not, and working fully and easily for customers. That's super important. Also from a privacy perspective, making sure that we do not share information that is private information across the organization or the channels. So making sure that all those security and privacy components are in place is critical. It's like the super bare minimum. It's a non-negotiable. And I know that at times compliance might not feel like very customer-centric, but I really believe it's like the bare minimum. Like if you are not compliant, you cannot say you are customer-centric. It's impossible. No way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are some of the ones that I will absolutely establish. And then one important one is like the decision-making process, like making sure that the right governance is in place, that there is seniority across the forums that will need to be established to approve the use cases, the oversight, and also understanding when each use case moves from a POC to, if you like, embedded in the ways of working for one individual use case, versus the orchestration that combines multiple agents talking to each other and making decisions.
So the future is very bright, but seems far ahead, you know? What would
Yes.
be your recommendation for the first actionable step in the CVM area towards this bold vision?
Yes. So I think it would be similar to defining a new strategy in the sense of why are we doing this? The first question, like what's the purpose of what we are trying to achieve in CVM? I know, like in very simple terms, it's about growing, retaining, and making sure that customers also get more value, right? But why are we doing this? Setting up specific KPIs that help establish the direction of this new, if you like, AI, native AI CVM, right? The second one is normally will be the how do we get there? But in this particular case, I'm going to skip that because AI, as I said, is designed or works best with objectives. It's less about the process and the how, it's more about the objective. So instead of talking about the how, I will go to the what, which is that outcome that we want to deliver. So what are those KPIs, those targets that you want to nail that are aligned with the why we exist? So once you know the why, once you know the KPIs and objectives, then the big job is to change the how. Because today in CVM, we can operate following processes that have been there for a while, using tools that didn't have AI embedded before, or not definitely the agentic AI. So I think we need to reflect on the current processes and how we can reinvent them differently in a way that uses the new technology, the new AI agents, and that is focused on achieving the goal differently in a more efficient way. Like if I want to grow, let's say, customer value 2% every year, how can I do it differently? And instead of trying to use AI to conduct the steps of your current processes, rethink the processes using the new technology. How to do that? Obviously, workshops with people that have been in CVM for a while, but also outside of CVM, people that have used AI for the day-to-day, like from an admin perspective, from a legal perspective. There are so many tools that each of them can help you to get a different perspective and learning. And out of that, if you like, incubation process, I'm sure there will be lots of ideas on how to deliver that goal much faster and using AI in the process.
I think it's a really, really good advice. I think we also see organizations maturing towards the way they think about adopting, especially agentic processes, because many start with small scattered use cases and then they navigate towards more the use cases that cover their core value proposition aspects, because it's like you start with something small scattered around the company, but the real value comes when you move to these more strategic ones, which help to deliver your key value proposition from the organization. So
Yes.
I think here it's a really nice part to wrap up today's conversation. So I wish every company to find their place or their way to adopt AI. Thank you, Silvia, for this really insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and future will tell.
CVM Stories is produced by Exacaster. We help companies take their customer value management to the next level. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to the podcast or sign up for an email newsletter at exacaster.com/CVM Stories.